Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So imagine for a moment you're a father sleeping peacefully at home. Peacefully at home with your wife and kids when violent thugs kick in your door and break into your home. You do what any husband would do. You try and protect your family, but you're fatally shot and murdered. This isn't a scene from a Hollywood production, Mr. Speaker. This is the reality for Aleem Faruqi and his family in Vaughan when Aleem was gunned down defending his family, a true hero. Imagine you wake up in the morning in your home to find out that your car in the driveway right below where your children sleep was almost stolen the night before. That's what happened to me back in August of this year. And I'm not special, Mr. Speaker. This has happened to numerous people in Vaughan, Woodbridge, and thousands of Canadians all across this country. In my community, everybody knows someone who has had a car stolen. In fact, in the last 8 weeks, York Region has seen 296 vehicle thefts. How about gun violence? In the last 8 weeks, we've had 10 shootings and a bank robbery. Last month, I attended a press conference in Vaughan, Woodbridge, joined by the Leader of the Opposition and fellow Conservative members of Parliament, victims of crime, and we attempted to address this very issue. The message was clear. Something needs to be done. Something needs to change in this country. For far too long now, I've heard horror stories in my community. Citizens being terrorized, their homes being broken into, their cars getting broken into, their loved ones being fatally shot. People are genuinely afraid. They're afraid in their own homes and afraid in their own communities. I was born and raised in Vaughan, Woodbridge, Mr. Speaker, a place that has always been to me the perfect place to raise a family. In my youth and early adult life, it was a community where you felt safe, where people would walk around at night without fear. They wouldn't worry if they forgot to lock their doors, and when they would go to bed knowing that they were safe in their own beds. But over the last decade, that sense of security has been shattered. My friends in my community no longer feel safe walking at night. Our youth go to school. They face threats of gun violence, stabbings, and assaults. Our seniors are anxious, wondering if their car will be on the driveway when they wake up in the morning. Just last Wednesday, 2 homes fell prey to shootings. The shootings happened only minutes apart. And get this, both of these homes have been shot earlier the same month. That means the residents have now lived twice through violent attacks. And recently in Vaughan, 3 suspects were arrested for committing a series of home invasions. 2 of these suspects were already out on bail. So what happened? Well, the Liberals introduced bail reform with Bill C5 and C75. And these Liberals' bail laws have completely broken our bail system. And what needs to change, Mr. Speaker? Today, this is exactly what we're here to address. This is far from a partisan issue. Premiers, mayors, police associations, attorney general, and Canadians have been asking for the federal government to end catch and release bail laws like Bill C75, a law that forces judges to apply the principle of restraint that puts repeat violent offenders back on the streets. And Bill C5, that repealed mandatory jail time for serious gun crimes, including extortion with a firearm. Because we all know the consequences. Since these laws were introduced, all across Canada, violent crime is up 55%, firearm crime up 130%, extortion has skyrocketed 330%, sexual assaults are up 76%, and homicides are up 29%. And in 2019, David Lametti, now the Prime Minister's right-hand man, passed Bill C-75, forcing judges to release offenders, I quote, at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions. Today, Conservatives have introduced a motion in the House of Commons for people tuning in my community, the motion reads as follows, that given that violent crime is up 55% under the Liberal government and repeat offenders continue to be released because of Liberal catch and release laws, and B, the Liberal government promised to pass criminal justice reform 6 months ago but has failed to do so in order to keep repeat offenders in jail and keep Canadians safe, the House is of the opinion that Bill C-242, an act to amend the Criminal Code and the Department of Justice, also known as the Jail Not Bail Act, must pass and is committed to sitting extended hours, holding expeditious committee study and undertaking such other procedural measures as may be necessary to pass it at its earliest opportunity. Conservatives are here to say, in order to stop this chaos on our streets, to keep repeat violent offenders in jail, and keep Canadians safe, we must pass my honourable colleague from Oxford's bill, the Jail Not Bail Act, Bill C-242. So, what will this Jail Not Bail Act do? 1. It will repeal and replace the liberal principle of restraint with a directive that the primary consideration to the protection of the safety of the public. Second, it introduces a new major offence category with reverse onus bail conditions for firearms, sexual assaults, kidnapping, human trafficking, home invasions, robbery, extortion, arson, and assault charges. 3, strengthen bail laws by mandating judges to consider and accuse full criminal history, prevent anyone convicted of a major offence in the last 10 years while also on bail charged with a major offence from getting bail. 4, prohibit anybody with an indictable conviction from acting as a guarantor, require judges to enforce bail conditions on guarantors, and require non-residents to surrender their passports upon request. But don't take our word for it, Mr. Speaker. Take it from Kate Alexander, a survivor of domestic violence who runs the organization End Violence Everywhere. And I quote, "The Jail Not Bail Act is more than legislation. It is an essential corrective, a lifeline capable of disrupting the revolving door of abuse and saving innocent lives." Or how about the Toronto Police Association, who stated, "The proposed ideas will put victims and communities first, restoring the balance that is desperately needed at a time when youth violence and gun crimes are out of control and innocent victims are paying the ultimate price. We would encourage all levels of government to set aside their political differences and do what is right." After the horrific murder of Aleem Faruqi in my community of Vaughan, Vaughan's mayor, Stephen Del Duca, called on the federal government for urgent bail system reform, stating, and I quote, "I am calling on the Prime Minister to show leadership and to urgently overhaul the system," end quote. I will repeat, Mr. Speaker, this is not a partisan issue. People's lives are at risk every single day this government delays. The Prime Minister and Minister of Justice have spent the last 6 months spiraling, dithering, and failing to act. In that time, violent crime has surged, and innocent Canadians have paid the ultimate price. You know, I've heard the Liberal members on that side of the House say they're going to introduce stronger bail laws, except they haven't, even though we know what is needed because we have heard it from every single corner of this country. Now, what we don't need is more Liberal reforms. We need to scrap Liberal bail and restore safety in our streets. If the Prime Minister and Liberal members of this House are serious about restoring peace to our communities, they will back this bill, reverse their disastrous bail laws, and tip the scales of justice back in favour of innocent Canadians. Look, if they don't want to support the bill for political purposes, abstain. Let it pass so people in this country can have a sense of security again. Every day Canadians wake up and they see another headline of a violent shooting. Tomorrow, many Canadians will wake up and their car will be stolen from their driveway. We have a job to do on behalf of the people who sent us here. The government's primary responsibility is to keep Canadians safe. It's time to put victims ahead of criminals and violent criminals behind bars where they belong. That is why I urge every member of this House to support my colleague's bill, Bill C-242, the Jail Not Bail Act. It's very important we stand up for our communities, for the people of this country, and put repeat violent offenders behind bars. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires? L'honorable député de Thérèse.
The honourable member for Thérèse de Blainville. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to insist on the fact that for my constituents and all across Canada, everyone's life is important and needs to be protected. And in that context, we're all working to create legislation that works for everyone. Our government is working on that. But my question is for the member opposite, of course. What did you do in the way of consultations to ensure that this legislation will not have a negative impact on our Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the delays. What consultations have you done around that?
Woodbridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For years now, police associations, mayors, individuals across this very country have been demanding bail reform. Violent crime is surging. Over and over again, we see the same story. Repeat violent offenders out on bail, committing crimes, terrorizing our citizens. Mr. Speaker, if the Liberals wanted to act, if they had a sense of urgency, they would have introduced bail reform right away at the beginning of the session of Parliament. But clearly, they continue to delay, and if they want to do what's right, they can step aside and allow us to introduce this legislation and fix the problem for them.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. Le député de Montcalm.
The honourable member for Montcalm. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Bloc has also made proposals to get tougher with organized crime, but using an opposition day to focus on a private member's bill, C 482 as 442, 242. I just wonder, should that bill be fast-tracked when we don't even know the status of the bill? Has it been considered from a constitutional perspective? Is it charter-proof? And also, as the member for Gaspésie-Les-Îles was asking, what do they think is lacking from Section 515.10 of the Criminal Code? Why is it so urgent to move ahead with this bill?
Woodbridge.
Mr. Speaker, maybe I wasn't clear in my remarks during my speech, but people in this country are legitimately afraid. They're losing trust in the very notion of justice in this country. They've faced repeated hurdles, repeated delays from this government for the last 6 years, has failed to act to address the very serious concerns of citizens, of police associations, of police departments, of mayors all across this country. So again, I will say the reason why we're acting with urgency is because this is an urgent problem and someone needs to stand up for the rights of the people of this very country.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Nanaimo-Ladysmith.
I want to thank my honourable colleague for his excellent remarks and ask him if he might elaborate a bit on the ways in which a Conservative government would address the issue.
The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my colleague for the question. Mr. Speaker, for our party, as we put forward in our Jail Not Bail Act, we would like to remove the principle of restraint being introduced for repeat violent offenders. We would like to keep repeat violent offenders in prison. We would like to have mandatory minimums on serious offenses like human trafficking, sexual violence, extortion. We believe that violent criminals need to be kept in prison, not given the principle of restraint. We do not need a revolving door in our justice system. We need to keep these people off the streets so our citizens in our communities, our friends and neighbors can feel safe in their country again. Thank you.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader, a short question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm wondering if the member could provide his thoughts on Bill C-48, which was passed. It was bail reform legislation. It was supported in every corner, virtually, of Canada. The one that dragged their feet on it was actually the Conservative Party. If you can provide his thoughts on that bail reform legislation.
The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bail reform is upon us right now. We've introduced the Jail Not Bail Act. We brought an opposition day motion forward to ask the House for us to expedite this bill so we can study it at committee. Like I said before, this should be a nonpartisan issue. We hear over and over again, everyone's in favor of bail reform. So will the Liberals get out of the way and pass our bill so we can keep communities safe? Thank you.